It's the Built in Black America podcast. Today we're talking with a lady who's making it easier for you to be a bartender at home. Hey, I'm Larry McGill. Thanks for joining me on today's journey. We're talking with Ashleigh Evans. She's the owner and CEO of InBooze. It's a company that creates infusion kits for your favorite cocktails. All you have to do is add the liquor. We'll talk about how Ashleigh got started, plus how InBooze took off in the middle of a pandemic. But first, I've got to give you the rundown. Ashleigh Evans is a mother, a former food blogger, and what works out well for the rest of us, a cocktail lover. She created InBooze back in 2018, and at any given time, her website has dozens of different cocktail kits ready to ship right to you. She's got classics like Old Fashions and Sangria. However, she's also got refreshing blends that might entice you to try something new. Ever since the pandemic forced more people to do more things at home, like drinking, business is booming. Ashleigh Evans, thank you for being on the Built in Black America podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this. I can't wait to just listen and everything.
And I can't wait to dig into your story about how you built InBooze. But first, before we start talking about your products, what were you doing before you started your company?
So I was a blogger for 10 years. So I started off, I had twins and I was just kind of looking for something to do. And so I was like, oh, let's write about like saving money. And then it kind of evolved to a food blog. So I did that. And in 2018, I was just kind of burned out, like just social media, all that stuff was just a little bit too much to keep up with all the blogging world and everything. And I just wanted something a little bit different. So that's where I kind of started thinking of what kind of product I could make or just a little pivot for everything. And so that's where kind of InBooze started. I used to do Saturday sips. So I give people a list of everything that they need for cocktails. And then later on in the night, then we'd make the cocktails on like social media. So either on Snapchat or Instagram. And then after that, people would always say like, oh, that was fun to do, but it just wanted a little bit easier to have cocktails at home. And so then that's where I started kind of thinking, okay, how can I make this easier? And so then I started dehydrating things and I started just kind of playing around it took me about 4 months to kind of play around and get all the flavor combinations that I was looking for. But yeah, it just kind of happened pretty quickly though.
So this wasn't something that just like came out of the blue or anything like that. It's sort of a progression from something you were already doing.
Yes. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
So set the scene for me. What does your kitchen, your living room, your dining room, wherever you were making these, what does it look like while you're putting together your first iterations of InBooze concoctions?
Yeah. So at first I had this tiny, tiny dehydrator. And so I was just dehydrating everything I could find. I was like, okay, let's try citrus today. And so it was set up in my kitchen. And then after that, I was like, okay, so let's put some combinations together. But I really wasn't sure how I wanted to present it. But I knew that I didn't want floaty. I'm weird about floaties. Like I just wanted to infuse it and then, be able to easily take it out. So that's why I like the whole tea style bag that I'm using. It's really easy. It helps everything stay together because if there's any herbs, you don't want them floating all over the place. So it just kind of, you put it in there, everything expands, but then you can just take it right out after 3 days. So it does take a little bit of a time to infuse, but I just really like that style. So then after I figured out the pouch, then I had to figure out the outer packaging. And I had stickers for almost the first year and a half that I just put all over the outer packaging. And then finally I started getting them printed last year.
So is anybody else doing these infused sort of pre-made cocktails?
So there are a few infusion kits out there. No one else has little pouches like I do, as far as I know. So I'm hoping it stays that way. Some people sell it out of mason jars. Most of those have ingredients that aren't, they're all kind of like a lot of chemicals, a lot of sugars, and I try to keep mine as clean as possible. And so there's not any direct competitors, but there are a few other ones on the market.
So this really is something that pretty much from top to bottom is bespoke to what you are doing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, tell me what your first flavors were and tell me what kind of flavors you've expanded those into now.
I went to school in Wisconsin, and so old fashions were really huge. And so I wanted an easy way to make old fashions at home. And so you can either do it in brandy or bourbon. And so that has like the cherries and the orange in it. And then I make sugar cubes. So there are 4 varieties that have sugar in them, but it's just a handmade cube, and you only add 5 grams of sugar for the whole infusion. So in the grand scheme of things, it's really not that much. So that was the first one. It took me a minute to figure out how to make sugar cubes and all that stuff. And then we also had a red wine sangria and mulling spice. So when I launched in October of 2018, I just had 3 flavors. And then now we're up to about 21. So yeah. So the first season was just, let's see how it goes, with the 3. Yeah.
So it's 2018, things start to pick up. Tell me about how you expanded. Now, for people listening in the future here, we're talking in April 2021.
Yeah,
We're on the cusp of coming out of a pandemic. So I
right.
want to break this sort of into two parts. If you could tell me how you expanded before the pandemic or leading up to it, and then tell me what you had to do when March of 2020 hit.
So I moved into a commercial space after year one. And so with the commercial space in the kitchen, I was able to get larger dehydrators and kind of ramp up my production a little bit more. But then by that fall, I started kind of realizing, okay, I need a little bit more space too. So I was in the old kitchen for about a year, and that allowed me to create a lot more, but also hire some people to help me and everything. But coming into January 2020, I didn't have anybody working for me. And so I didn't have a huge online presence. I was mostly just local little shops or local like events and everything. I really didn't have a ton of online orders except for the holiday season. And so then in January 2020, I was just ready to ramp up and do shows in different states. And actually, my last show before the pandemic was in Chicago. It was like a huge show. It was beginning of March, and I was like, I'm surprised this is happening because the buzz was just everywhere. Like, oh, what's going on? Like it's just like kind of scary. And it's like this is probably my last show. We just had no idea what was happening. And so after that, the schools closed, and for about 5 weeks, I was just homeschool mom. I was just doing everything I could to just kind of keep our sanity. We had no idea what was going on. But then I started realizing, okay, people are starting to really order right now. So then I took our office and I could just kind of made it my shipping center. And luckily I had some stuff made up from that previous show I did, but I was kind of scared to like go out because I was like, I don't know if I can find oranges right now. I don't know if I can find limes or any of the stuff that I need to dehydrate. And so it just kind of started a little bit crazy for sure.
So March 2020 hits, as you alluded, the world shuts down.
Yeah.
Everybody is worried about jobs because all these non-essential businesses are forced to close their doors. But you, on the other hand, are forced to expand,
Yeah.
and rather quickly.
Quickly and safely, which was very hard. And just also, it was hard because I would sell out so quickly, and people were like, well, why can't I order things? And like, you have to realize I have to figure out where I can source things right now. I was out of bubble mailers for a good like month and a half, and I was just like, okay, what do I do now? Like just little random things that I just could not find. But then also trying to find somebody that we could kind of quarantine together and like work safely. I mean, we still wear masks at work until we're all vaccinated. But just, finding someone that felt safe coming out to the kitchen with me and just being able to help me because pretty much until May I was on my own and I was just getting orders just flooding in at all times. It was just insane.
So how long did it take you to make things, and then how quickly would you sell out?
Yeah, so we got a second dehydrator. They were finally in stock. So we were able, it takes about 23, 24 hours to dehydrate something. And so we can make like 50 at a time each day. And then I cut back some of the flavors too. But then it takes quite some time to kind of get it all together, at least like 2, 3 days to make sure I could get it back on the market. And then it would pretty much sell out. Or I'd have someone say like, hey, I'm doing a virtual event. Can I have 300? I'm like, okay, well, that's everything I'm doing today. Like it just, the virtual events just started really snowballing and then Etsy and all that. And so
Mhm.
it was just insane. Yeah.
So as I've mentioned before, we're coming out of this pandemic. More people are starting to go back out.
Right.
Bars are starting to open up. Capacity is starting to increase. But do you find that people are still buying this and saying, hey, why do I need to go to a bar? Why do I need to go out anywhere?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like a lot of people are like, well, do you think you'll still be busy after the pandemic? But I think people like this lifestyle. They like to be able to have a nice drink at home. And the nice thing is once you infuse it, you have 6 months to enjoy. So if you have a mason jar full of like the spicy margarita, you don't have to drink it all at once. So a lot of people just have their favorites on hand for when they want a cocktail. Or they know exactly what's in it, which is helpful too. Most margaritas have, so much sugar and weird chemicals and like coloring to make it green, and mine are just very clean. So I think once you try those, then you get kind of used to that style of cocktail. And when you have a normal margarita out at a restaurant, you're like, wow, this is really sugary. I have we call them the InBooze squad. Like we just have like a crew of people that just order. Some people order every other week. I have stores that order quite a bit. I'm in over 300 stores now, which was completely different from the beginning of the pandemic. I was in zero. So just that whole market was just everything is just blown up to the point where I'm like, I don't know what to expect any day,
Right, right.
Yeah.
So did I hear you say that bars were actually ordering some of these too?
I haven't had any really bars ordering yet, but when people go to a bar and order margaritas, I think now that they're used to mine, they're like, wow, this is a little sugary, it's a lot smoother The fruit really just brings out all the flavor of the alcohol.
For the record, if anybody's asking, I kind of like my margaritas a little bit more on the salty side.
Yeah, I always add salt to them. Yes, me too. And I'm actually working on margarita salt right now, which I'm really excited about.
So we're talking about like one of those containers like you see with the little sombrero hat on the top, or is it something a little bit more simple?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna just put it in like in the same kind of pouch so people can just like pour it out on their own little plate, and then I'll have a bunch of different flavors in there and also Bloody Mary salts too. So that's another thing we're kind of working on right now. So I just happened to be shopping around it last fall, and I just found this empty building that was 5 minutes from my house. And so it has a retail space and a warehouse in the back. And so I'm like, yeah, let's just go for it. I toured it and with my husband, and I looked at him, I'm like, let's just do this. We need more space. We need to just expand. And so I leased the building, and we had to build a kitchen in the back. And so we finally moved in here in December. And so it's still just an adjustment period, filling up the space and just working on inventory and everything. And now, like in the beginning of the winter, we were in Macy's. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so that was like a huge kind of thing. We're just expanding very quickly, but we have to also make sure that we have people to help and all that. It's just, yeah.
So you said 300 stores earlier. Is that including the Macy's stores, or is Macy's coming on top of the 300 stores that you're in now?
Yeah, Macy's is on top of all that. So I have a lot
Oh,
of
wow.
local, like smaller boutiques. There's some larger ones too, but it's really nice, like in little towns. It's pretty much all over the country. All the major cities have a store that carry InBooze too, which is nice. So I'm not quite sure if I'm ready for the big boxes, but Macy's was it was just a 20 store kind of rollout. So it wasn't too scary at first. But like Chicago, New York, there's the Philadelphia one, San Francisco. And then Aisha Curry has a store in Oakland, and it's there also. So those are my larger stores. But I love the small boutiques too, especially getting to know the owners and everything, and just hearing their stories and how the customers react to the product. I just love talking with everybody.
Now people know where they need to be on the lookout. So, out of all the flavors that you have on the shelf right now, what's your favorite?
I love the spicy margarita. It has pineapple and grapefruit in it too, so it's a little bit of sweet with the jalapeno. That's always my go-to. I love the old fashioned. It's really hard to pick. It depends on the week, I guess. We have a new blood orange margarita that's really good too.
Yeah, so it's about like trying to pick your favorite kid, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So I know you said that you've got the salt on the way. I'd imagine that I know you said you cut back on some of the drinks that you were making, but I assume that some of those are coming back. Looking down the line, what does InBooze look like going into the future?
Yeah, that's what we're still kind of working on right now. There's so many possibilities, and I don't want to overextend myself at the same time, but I know that there's a demand for it. And so we're looking for kind of larger packs for like weddings or large events. So it'd be a large infusion that you can have for a larger gathering when they happen at some point,
Right, whenever we're able to do that
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. So that's something, at least I have a little time to work for that. And then just, yeah, like bars and restaurants. And even when was thinking about airports, like people don't have time to wait for a drink to be made sometimes if they just have the infusions there and all they had to add is like the mixer. So maybe ready to go cocktails also. That's a big request from customers. So there's just a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, so based on what you've got going on right now, I'm excited to see what you come up with in the future. So take a step back with me for just a moment. You've got rave reviews about everything you've got on the market. You're selling out all the time. That means the quality of your product has to be pretty high. How do you go about ensuring that what you're putting out there is exactly what you want, if not better?
It was hard at first to make sure that everything was consistent because we are hand making everything and we're hand slicing all the fruit and we're dehydrating. And so for me, like let's get a slicer so everything's the exact same width. So if you get a spicy margarita today or like in 3 weeks, it's going to taste pretty much the same. Sometimes, jalapenos might be spicier or something like that, but I try to get organic as much as possible. And just one of those things where I'm just really looking at all the ingredients I'm putting in here to make sure it's something that I would be proud of. And even if someone else is hand making it in the kitchen with me, we're all looking to make sure everything is consistent. We have recipe cards, and I always check and make sure everything looks exactly the same. And then I'm just really kind of strict about it just because I don't want somebody to get one that's like, oh, well, that doesn't taste anything like the one I had before. It's really important. And then finally getting my packages printed was huge too, because, putting the stickers on, it didn't really look the best. and just having a nice printed package, but within my price range also. It was hard to find, but I finally found a local printer that can do it for me. So I get the wholesale packaging and then he prints it on it for me. So a lot of these companies, you have to buy like 25,000 of something just to be able to print on it. And I obviously didn't have the budget for that. So budgeting everything, but still making sure it looks professional and yeah, a little bit more upscale because the price point is a little up there, but I think the quality is worth it.
So, talk to me about the importance of Black people supporting your business. And here's why I ask this question. The more I talk to Black business owners, the more they tell me, hey, I've gone through and created this product that has mass appeal. But I look out at all my customers, and a lot of them aren't Black, the vast majority. If you could look into a crystal ball and forecast the future of your business, tell me how much more successful you think you could be if more Black people, more brown people made sure that they supported your business.
Yeah, that is such a good question. I do think in June, where it was like, oh, buy Black, and everyone was like supporting the Black owned businesses. But I kept saying, I really appreciate your support, but I'm not just a checkbox on your list. Are you going to be someone that continues to support me, or is this just something that you want to do? And so I think that just me having my face on my brand quite a bit has really helped recognition. So people are like, oh, wow, I'm glad that I'm supporting this. That, it's just kind of you know a little bit more behind the brand. I'm trying to speak more and like my story and everything like that. And I think that people can kind of say like, oh, I am supporting a Black owned business. And I think that having the support from the community is, really important. And for me, just shopping myself, I'm always looking for brands to shop from, but it's really hard to find sometimes. Like, or I follow hashtags on Instagram and things like that. But it's like I would love to have, some sort of resource where I'm like, okay, where can I find? I'm looking for some note cards right now. Who makes those for me? That kind of thing. I'd love to support Black as much as possible. So I think people might not know about me yet because they haven't heard about it yet. It's kind of hard sometimes.
So let me get this shameless plug in here. That's part of the reason that I created the Built in Black America podcast was to share stories just like yours so people can identify with the products and hopefully find some things that they want to support. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I know time is money. But can you tell me if you have any sort of books, podcasts, or any other sort of places where you go to get inspiration that might help somebody else that's trying to start a business of their own?
Yeah, I actually like I was trying to think of some books that I've read and really like I started listening to a lot of business podcasts, but I get a little bit of tidbit of information and like, okay, well now sign up for my master class or sign up for this or that. And I feel like that's just almost like feeding on small businesses. Like I found a lot of them are a little bit misleading. And so I feel like I've just been kind of learning as I go. And I know that's not very helpful, but I feel like you have to realize that everything can't be perfect at first. And you just kind of, okay, well, I'm out of this. Let's figure out how we can make this work. And I'm just very driven to figure things out on my own. But I do have a huge stack of books that I need to read. I keep buying them because I'm like, yes, I'm going to do this. And then I've been working like 18-hour days. I don't really have much time to read. I need to get some audio versions or something. I do listen to a lot of podcasts though. So
Those are still excellent points that you made about the sort of bait and switch that you get from some places. But tell me, I want to touch on one other thing that you just said. You were talking about how everything is not always rosy. Uh, Tell me about some of the problems that you have or that you're facing right now when it comes to keeping your business just off the ground.
yeah, I would say for sure the shipping issues right now. Something that's really out of my control ends up being all my fault. Like I get so many rude people, and someone even was like, "Well, I'm just trying to support a Black-owned business, and I've been waiting 2 weeks for this now," and like just yelling at me, like, "Why did you have to just say like, oh, I haven't gotten my product yet? Why do you have to point out that you're trying to help me?" Just I some of the emails I get during the holidays, I had to turn it over to somebody else to check my emails because they were just, I'm working. I'd be working like I'd go home basically for 4 hours during the holiday season. And so for me to be just working that hard and have people just screaming at me and just these awful, awful emails. And so that was one of the hardest things, even to this day, dealing with. People have to also understand that I'm a human and we're hand making these things. And we're still in a pandemic, especially during the holidays. Like a lot of stuff was running out. And so for people to just not understand, I'm very transparent on my website. Hey, it's a 2 week shipping time right now. If people just all scream at me like through email, that's just it's really hard. And even now, there's delays in certain parts of the country for the USPS. You just never know when things are going to arrive. And so I do my best, but like I have a bunch of packaging right now that I ordered in the end of January, and it's stuck on a boat somewhere. And it's starting to stress me out a little bit, especially with some of the orders coming through. I'm just like, okay, we're down to like 5,000 packages right now, and we can only hope it arrives in 2 weeks when it's supposed to. Like, just it's getting stressful.
Yeah, let's hope they can get things turned around there. I know I have had some packages that have taken weeks longer to get here than they should have. So before I let you go, tell me how people can best support your business. And I say best support your business because I know a lot of people sell things on Amazon or other platforms. And a lot of times those platforms will take a certain percentage out. It doesn't go straight to your pocket. So tell me how people can best support your business that benefits you.
I would say actually like through my actual website is the best route, inbooze.com. I'm also on Etsy, but everyone takes out a little percentage, but I feel like I get the most back from just my actual website. And then also just following on social media, we have a lot of sales. I do about every quarter a Facebook Flash event, and so people can stock up and save a lot of money that way. And so I know that sometimes it's a little bit expensive for people, so I like to have options to save if they need to.
And the website is inbooze.com.
Yep, that's it. And then eventually, locally, I'll have a store open too. I have a little area set up right now, but the whole retail part of my business is kind of the last on the totem pole versus like the kitchen.
All right. Well, thanks for being on the podcast. I look forward to seeing what you have going on in the future. I'm going to be ordering some things just because to me, this isn't just something that's great because I like drinking. It's a great gift idea. It's very convenient. I don't know if it gets any more convenient than that.
I know that's the biggest. I would say gifts is probably like at least 60% of the orders, I would say. And then the people that get the gifts start ordering. And so it's definitely a huge snowball effect. I love it. Love it so much.
Yeah, spring is coming up as we're talking. It's wedding season.
Yeah.
Those of you that want to go get gifts for brides or brides that want to give gifts to their wedding parties.
Yeah, that's huge.
I feel like this is something really, you can't beat it.
I know. That's so true. Yeah. Everybody needs a drink every once in a while. And you can make them mocktails too, which is another important thing that we're trying to emphasize a little bit too. You can just infuse it in water too if you don't drink.
And, in this day and age, sometimes you need more than a drink every once in a while.
Yeah. For sure.
And this makes it a little bit easier.
Yes, for sure.
Well, Ashleigh, thanks for being on the podcast with me.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
No problem. Hopefully it will not be the last time.
Oh, for sure. I can come back anytime.
Hey, thanks to Ashleigh Evans once again for being on the Built in Black America podcast. She's the owner and CEO of InBooze. It's a company that creates cocktail infusion kits and sends them right to your front door. You can support her company over at inbooze.com. We'll have links to her website and social media over on builtinblackAmerica.com. Now, if you've gotten this far, why not subscribe to the Built in Black America podcast? We're on all the major platforms. Just search Built in Black America. You can also check us out on social media. On Instagram, the handle is Built in Black America. And on Twitter, it's Black America Pod. I'm Larry McGill. Thanks for joining me on the journey.